YouTube. Today we're going to cover another step of the Recomp guide. And in this video we're going to talk about who can do it effectively and what you should be doing with your diet. So first off, as far as who can do it, anyone can do it, really. It's a Recomp, there's no prerequisites to do that. That being said, there are certain individuals that are going to be strictly more able to follow it, to get results from it. And also your body composition when you start is going to dictate whether you should even be attempting it or not. My thought process on it is a Recomp can be done by someone who's very overweight or someone who's very underweight. That being said, the process that I discuss is trading fat for muscle. That, in my opinion, is going to be strictly easier if you have a lot of fat. If you are a very skinny individual who doesn't have much of a muscle mass on their frame and little fat as well, you understand that the process of trading one for the other is going to be very impaired because you don't have it. A Recomp is nothing magical. You're trading matter for matter. You're basically pushing your body towards privileging a certain type of fiber, which you don't have if you're skinny. So for skinny men, like I used to be, I prefer slow bulks with clean whole foods, or dirty bulks for people who are really desperate, but I don't advise it. So that's one type of people that really shouldn't be doing it. If you're a beginner, just eat and gain some weight unless you're really overweight. And don't worry about recomposition for now because you have nothing to recomp. People who are very overweight can also, if they want, do a Recomp. The issue they're going to be facing is a Recomp is very slow. So if you have a lot of fat, you are going to have a very easy time maintaining and even gaining strength and doing that trade-off, but you could potentially go just as fast doing a cut. Why? It's the same mentality. Because you have such a high amount of fat, your body is not going to starve the muscles if you cut. So if you do a Recomp, yes, you're going to slowly lose fat and slowly gain muscle, but the same process could be gained on a cut with much more of a body fat loss and as good muscle gains. I wouldn't say better, but as good. So these two individuals that are on each side of the spectrum shouldn't, in my opinion, do it. If you want to do it, it's up to you, but it's not optimal. So who are in the best position to do so? In my opinion, it's natural lifters who underwent a lot of bulking and cutting cycles and who find themselves at a point where they're very happy with their size and they want to sculpt the body. So you are happy with the overall mass, but now you want the mass to be redistributed a certain way. That, for me, is primal for a Recomp because you have plenty of body fat to trade for muscle. You have a good strength base, so you're going to be able to keep doing your strength work. You have a great understanding on how your strength fluctuates, so you're going to be able to handle that too. And it's going to be something that potentially you're going to be doing until the end of your lifting journey. Potentially, because I'm at a situation right now where besides a very small cut, if I want to prep for something online, like a bodybuilding contest online, I don't see myself ever doing bulking and cutting cycles. I've done plenty of them and I'm sort of done with them. With what I've seen from the Recomp, I believe that this is the future. So that's pretty much the pool of individuals to consider when it comes to who can do a Recomp. Now keep in mind that there are many more types of people than what I just stated. I stated generalities. You can fall into one of these categories and have a certain type of metabolism that's going to make a Recomp possible or impossible. As I expose what I believe a Recomp to be, you're going to get a very good understanding of whether or not you fall into the right category. So now that that is done, let's talk about the meat and potatoes of the Recomp for many people, which is the diet. Let me start by saying that for me, the diet is not essential and it is not more important than the training. But the training isn't more important either. The training, I will talk about it in a different video, but they go hand in hand. So please don't believe that I think a diet makes a recomp. It doesn't. That being said, the diet is something you need to pay close attention to, because this is what is going to feed the recomp in a sense, and it's going to either make it or break it. For me, the training has a much more, it's going to gauge whether or not what you're doing is working, but it's not going to really create the results. It's going to, in a way, but the diet makes that happen much faster. And so the diet has more of that component of evolution, but the diet also has a gouging aspect to it, which is the appetite. So, personally, I started my recomp when I started this channel. But technically, I had been doing a recomp for close than even a year and a half, because I had a period of time where I slowly bulked up to 240. I was way too fat. I panicked, crash cut to 210, did the worst cut you can imagine, lost a ton of muscles, panicked again because I was too small and my body dysmorphia was going crazy, bulked super fast again to 225, and then from 225, slowly started a very slow cut until I got to, I want to say 215, and then I started recomping. I'm going to make other videos because I think it's going to interest a lot of people, but all of these cuts, bulks, up and down, random calories here and there, did a lot of harm to my body. My body fat distribution started going all over the place. I started having just packs of fat in weird places that I didn't have to use. I really did a number on my body, and I want to help people on this channel not do the same, if I can prevent you from doing the same mistakes I did. But to go back to the topic of the recomp, I had been on that recomp for a super long time. The reason why I say I started the recomp when I started the channel is because something major happened to me in January of that year, which made me rethink my diet completely. And I dropped a ton of things, I modified a ton of things, and what ended up happening is that when I started that, I was 215 because I was on that recomp at 215. And I hadn't weighed myself. I weighed myself when I came back, but I didn't do it for 2 months afterwards. And I saw my physique changing very rapidly. And then I weighed myself and I was 210. So I lost 5 pounds, which means the recomp was a failure. But the way my body looked, it didn't look like I lost a lot of fat. It just looked like my body got rid of a lot of water. I can't explain that. I talked about it in my estrogen for males videos where I explain what goes on if you have too much estrogen in your diet as a male. For me, my love handles were bulging on the side. I had a lot of puffiness in my face, and all of that went away when I gave up dairy and the amount of red meat I was eating. And I only had lost 5 pounds, which a lot of that was water, but it made a complete difference, which is why if you go back to my very early on videos and the videos where you see my body, I look much bulkier back then, but it was a lot of water and fat. I haven't lost that much weight. All of that to say what? All of that to say that if you're going to do a recomp, in my opinion, you should stay at the same body weight. I'm going to explain why. But you should pay attention to what you eat, and you should not introduce massive changes in your diet pre-recomp or very early on in the recomp. Why? Because your body is going to take some time to catch up. But when it does, if that change you did is significant, it's going to throw a wrench in the entire thing. It's the same mentality for the training. You shouldn't start changing the trainings mid-recomp because you're changing the variables. We're trying to maintain the same body mass in an effort to see if we can effectively trade fat for muscle. So if you start changing the precepts of your training or what you put into your body too much, the experiment doesn't really have much sense now, because you could attribute those changes to the changes in training or diet, which is what happened to me. So I weighed myself, I was 210, so now I'm recomping at 210, I'm able to maintain that. The thing that you're going to have to keep in mind with the diet is we're all different. Yes, we all need proteins to build muscle. Yes, we all need fats for hormonal production, etc. We need carbs for our brain to turn into energy, etc., etc. But once you fill all your macros and micros for the day, you still have calories left. Those calories, depending on who you are going to be vastly different. Some people are going to fill them with proteins, some people are going to fill them with carbs, fat. Most people do it with carbs. It's not the best for everyone. Personally, for me, carbs, my body loves carbs. I get just leaner when I eat carbs. I can't explain it. It just makes my body feel that much better. And it's like, I think it's a source of energy that's very efficient for me. At the same body weight, meaning that if I ate the same things to maintain that 210 and I changed the carbs for more fats, for example, it is my instinct and from the experience I've gotten that I would lose fat more slowly. It all depends on who you are. You have to experiment with things. But I advise again that you experiment before the recomp so that you don't throw a wrench into the diet mid-recomp and then lose or gain a bunch of weight. It's going to be also very important that you track your appetite and that you realize one simple thing. As the recomp progresses, if it's going well, you're going to lose fat and gain muscle. What does that mean? Your caloric intakes will have to go up as well because muscle is more glutinous in calories than fat. Your body and your metabolism is going to increase with your muscle mass, and even though it's a small increase, if you don't match it, you're going to start losing weight and you're going to enter a slow cut. And what you want to avoid with a recomp is doing this, right? Because even though you meet the median line of the recomp when you have micro bulks, micro cuts, micro bulks, micro cuts, yes, you do meet that line, but most of the time you're not spending it at that body weight, and we want to avoid that. Your weight is going to fluctuate, but we don't want massive variations because it's not the goal of the recomp. The recomp should show your body that if it stays at the same weight and gains strength, it can also make muscular improvements. So try and avoid that. The reason why I say that is because unfortunately your appetite might not adapt. For me, for example, I have a slow metabolism, so I do very well with low calories. My body maintains itself. And I have a normal appetite, which means that when I did that thing where I gave up dairy, I lost a ton of calories in my diet. And I sort of tried to make up for it, but it was such a massive change and my body was not really asking for those calories anymore. It didn't want it. So my appetite failed me in a sense, and I lost weight because I wasn't eating the very calorie heavy dairies and red meats that I used to eat. And my instinctual dieting tips that I give people to not count calories if they don't want to backfired on me, and I lost the weight. And I personally found out I lost the weight because certain lifts regressed. I'm going to talk about that in the training portion of the recomp. But don't rely on your appetite too much and make up for the gain of muscle mass with an increase in calories. For me, what I do right now to make sure I maintain 210 and I don't dip as I progress in strength is I force myself to snack. Once in the day, when I feel that little tank of hunger, even if I'm not super hungry, I'm going to have a snack. That's going to throw like 300 calories in the mix, and that's going to help me make sure that I don't enter a caloric deficit. So as far as diet and everything, that's pretty much that. Let's see if I can get the light to work like this. Yes. So I think this wraps it up pretty much for the diet part. I'm not going to tell you to eat certain types of veggies or meats because I trust that you will know your own body and experiment with it. There's no point in following a diet that someone else set up for you for 10 years. Play around with it, see what works, what doesn't work. For me, dropping dairy was a revolution. And maybe for you, you have that one thing in your life that you're eating that if you gave up on it, it would make you feel much better. And the flip side is also true. Eating garlic and onions really helped me. And it might also help you to try different foods. We have to experiment. Don't stay static. Let me rack my brain, but I think it pretty much is all that I had to do and say about the diet part. So yeah, the appetite control, make sure that you always stay at the maintenance phase. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you're interested in the recomp and what the video is lacking something that you would like to hear about, let me know. But if you if you are expecting more about training, it's going to come later, and I'm also going to discuss other aspects of the Recomp. But so far for me, it's been an experiment, and I want to keep doing it because I've been getting great results from it. So you can expect to see my physique keep improving on the channel, get leaner and leaner. Some measurements are going up, some are stagnating, and I'm going to talk about that too in the guide. What you can expect in terms of measurements, what is going to go down, what the body fat is going to go away. And it's also why, and I'm going to end up with that, I tell people not to play with the diet part too much and not changing too much, is because, as I said, a change in the macros you consume to fill your caloric goal is going to result in vastly different body part distributions, body fat distributions. Some people think it's BS, I personally don't. A calorie is not just a calorie. Depending on what you get it from, it's going to have an influence on your insulin production, on what your body does with the calories, where it goes, etc., etc. So even when you consume certain types of macros during the day, not proteins, but like carbs, for example, is going to play a massive role in how your body looks, which is why when you start the Recomp, you need to have the variables set. You need to know what your diet is going to look like, so that the only variation that happens to the diet is a potential increase in calories as you gain muscle. And it's the same for the training. The training cannot change too much. I'll talk about that later. The only thing that should happen to the training is a small increase in tonnage, because both diet and training are as important, because one gouges and one drives, and they create that equilibrium that's going to allow your body mass to stay the same, but slowly increase in muscle. So if you start throwing this here, then this is going to go down. If you start throwing that here, you're going to start gaining weight, etc., etc. You want to avoid that. You do not recomp through training or diet. You recomp through both. They are both just as important. So that's pretty much that for the day. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.